You've been swinging hard, praying harder, pushing past the pain, and still nothing changes. You wonder why you're stuck in cycles, why the walls aren't falling, and why the breakthrough seems to be breaking you instead. But the truth is, you're fighting a losing battle, not because you're not strong enough, but because the fight was never yours to begin with. Strength without alignment is like rowing a boat with all your might in the wrong direction. You're not lazy. You're just misaligned, and that's why the battle feels impossible. Some of you are trying to prove yourself to people who never had the power to validate you. That's a losing battle. Some of you are pouring energy into relationships, careers, or goals that God never asked you to carry. That's a losing battle. And every day, you wake up and put on armor for a war that doesn't even serve your destiny. Here's the truth: not every battle is worth fighting, and not every fight leads to victory. If the enemy can't destroy you, he'll distract you. He'll keep you busy fighting meaningless wars so you never have time to win the war that actually matters, the one within you. Because the real battle is not out there. It's in here, in your thoughts, your beliefs, your identity. You can't conquer external chaos until you confront internal confusion. What if you're not losing because you're weak, but because you're not supposed to win that fight? What if you're failing because you're not supposed to succeed at something that's beneath your calling? This is the moment to stop wasting energy on what drains you and start investing in what grows you. Shift your focus. Surrender your pride. Let go of the need to win every fight, because victory doesn't always look like conquering. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes the wisest move is not pushing harder, but pivoting smarter. You're not losing because you're incapable. You're losing because you're out of position. And the moment you realign with your purpose, the moment you say, I won't fight where I'm not called, is the moment the real battle begins. And the moment victory becomes inevitable. Because when you finally fight the battle that aligns with your destiny, you don't fight alone. Waking up earlier than everyone else, staying up later, putting in the effort, the hours, the sweat, the grind, and still feel stuck, still feel like nothing's moving forward, still feel like you're pushing a heavy boulder up a hill that only gets steeper every time you start to climb. But the problem isn't your work ethic. The problem is where you're directing your effort. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle and grind. We're taught that the solution to every problem is more energy, more hours, more hustle. But what if the real issue isn't how hard you're working? It's what you're working toward. You might be fully committed, but to the wrong assignment. That's called misalignment. That's like running full speed in the wrong direction. And the danger of misalignment is this: it doesn't show up right away. It feels like productivity. It feels like progress because you're moving, you're busy, you're tired. But motion is not the same as direction. Just because something is keeping you busy doesn't mean it's keeping you aligned. And that misalignment starts to wear on your spirit in ways you don't notice at first. You begin to question your calling, your ability, your identity, not because you're not called, not because you're not able, but because you're planting seeds in the wrong soil and expecting a harvest that was never promised there. But if you're stuck in a job where your voice has no platform, you'll start to feel like you're invisible. You can have a heart for ministry, but if you're forcing yourself into a business space just because it pays well, you'll start to resent what you're doing, even if you're good at it. And that's the trap, being good at something that you're not called to. Sometimes the enemy doesn't have to stop you with failure. He can distract you with success in the wrong area, wondering why you feel unfulfilled. You're busy but broken. You're moving but misaligned. And the more you push, the more drained you become because you're operating outside your purpose. God didn't design you to just be productive. He designed you to be purposeful. The world measures success by how much you can produce. But purpose, Purpose measures success by how much you're aligned with what you were created for. Let me tell you something: misalignment will always lead to exhaustion. Because when your effort isn't connected to your calling, you have to use willpower to sustain what only purpose was meant to fuel. And willpower runs out, passion fades. But purpose carries you. Purpose restores you. Purpose fuels you even when the work is hard, even when the progress is slow, because deep down you know, this is where I'm meant to be. So maybe the question isn't, why am I not further along? Maybe the real question is, am I even on the right path? Maybe you need to pause and ask, is what I'm doing right now connected to who I was created to be? Because when your effort and your purpose line up, you stop chasing success and start walking in significance. You stop fighting for approval and start flowing in assignment. Don't let your energy be wasted on things that were never meant to define you. Don't let misalignment disguise itself as progress. Your strength was never the problem. Your direction was. And the moment you step back, reevaluate, and realign, things begin to shift. Peace returns, clarity grows, doors open, because you've finally stopped fighting to make something work that was never meant to fit. It's not too late to shift. It's not too late to realign. You're not too far gone. You just need to bring your effort back under the authority of your purpose. And when you do, that's when you stop losing battles and start walking in victories that were already yours. One of the greatest drains on your life isn't the battle itself. It's the battles you were never meant to fight in the first place. You keep wondering why you're so tired, so heavy, so discouraged. But it's not because you're weak. It's because you're carrying weight that was never assigned to you. You're stepping into fights that were never part of your calling. And no matter how much faith you have, how strong your will is, or how pure your intentions are, you will always feel defeated when you fight in a battle that isn't yours. There's a difference between being brave and being burdened. Sometimes we confuse responsibility with calling. We step in to fix things that weren't ours to fix. We try to be everything for everyone, thinking it's what strength looks like. But true strength is knowing when to step back, knowing when to let go, knowing when to say, this fight is not mine. Because some battles, no matter how loud they are just not your assignment. You don't have to fight every critic. You don't have to chase every opportunity. You don't have to engage every argument. In fact, engaging in the wrong battles will cost you more than you realize. They'll drain your joy. They'll distract your focus. They'll delay your destiny. Because the enemy knows that if he can't destroy you, he can distract you. And what better way to distract you than to pull you into battles that keep you busy but not effective? You were not designed to fight every battle. That's why some fights leave you empty. That's why some situations seem impossible to win, because they were never yours to begin with. And the moment you step into a fight that doesn't carry your name, you step out of the grace that was meant to carry you. Grace doesn't follow you into disobedience. Grace stays where purpose lives. And if you're outside of purpose, don't expect peace to show up there. Think about David in the Bible. He wasn't even in the army, wasn't even supposed to be on the battlefield. He was delivering lunch. But when he showed up and saw Goliath, something in him said, "This is my battle." That's how you know you're in the right fight. Not because it looks good, not because everyone else is fighting it, but because deep in your spirit something says, this is my moment. This is what I was made for. But here's the flip side. Not every Goliath you see is yours to kill. Not every loud voice, not every conflict, not every need requires your presence. If you're always jumping in to fight, to defend, to rescue, you'll end up worn out, bitter, and empty. Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because you fought where you weren't called. God gives strength for the battles He assigns. So if you're feeling burned out, if you're constantly frustrated, if the outcome never changes no matter how hard you fight, maybe it's time to ask, is this really my battle? Because wisdom doesn't just fight hard, wisdom fights right. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from a battle that doesn't belong to you. Stop letting people guilt you into fights that compromise your peace. Stop letting insecurity pull you into proving yourself through unnecessary conflict. Stop thinking that saying no is weakness. No is holy. No is protective. No is often the most spiritual word you can say, because your energy is limited, your time is sacred, and your focus is too precious to waste on what was never meant for you. The enemy would love nothing more than to see you bleed in a battle that has no reward, to see you pour your soul into something that was never meant to bear fruit. And he'll even dress it up to look like a noble cause, to sound like a righteous war. But discernment is knowing when to say, not today, not my battle, not my assignment. You're not weak for walking away from the wrong fight. You're wise. You're not irresponsible for protecting your peace. You're being obedient because you weren't called to fight everything. You were called to win the battles that matter. And when you focus on those, the ones God designed you for, you'll start to see victory after victory, not because you're stronger, but because you're finally in position. The right battle always brings the right grace. Sometimes the reason you're losing isn't because you lack strength. It's because you're missing strategy. We live in a world that celebrates force, the grind, the hustle, the late nights, the never quit attitude. And while those things have value, they're not enough on their own. Strength without strategy is like trying to open a door with the wrong key. It doesn't matter how hard you push, it's not going to open if you're approaching it the wrong way. Push longer, fight louder, you'll get the breakthrough. But what if the breakthrough doesn't come through pressure? What if it comes through perspective? That's where strategy lies. That's where wisdom steps in. Because brute strength might get you noticed, but strategy, that's what gets you results. We've been conditioned to believe that struggle automatically equals progress. That if we're tired, it must mean we're doing something meaningful. That if we're overwhelmed, it must mean we're on the edge of success. But that's not always true. Sometimes being overwhelmed just means you're overextended. And sometimes being tired just means you're doing too much of the wrong thing, in the wrong way, at the wrong time. What you need is not just more strength. What you need is a better strategy, a new way of thinking, a wiser way of responding, a plan that aligns your effort with your outcome, because it's not enough to work hard. You need to work right. You need to be intentional, because the wrong move at the wrong time, even with the right motives, can lead to failure. Think about it. How many times have you tried to fix something in your life by applying more pressure, only to watch it get worse? Relationships that got tighter but colder. Finances that got busier but not better. Spiritual life that got louder but not deeper. That's what happens when we lead with strength and forget about strategy. We react instead of reflect. We push instead of pause. And we keep fighting the same battles with the same weapons, expecting a different result. That's not strength. That's stubbornness disguised as determination. We see this. Joshua didn't take down Jericho by bulldozing the wall. He took it down by following a strategy. March around the city once a day for 6 days, then 7 times on the 7th. That made no sense to the flesh, but it was divine strategy. And strategy is often what separates those who win from those who wear out. Because when you follow the right plan, you don't have to burn yourself out trying to force things open that God already designed to fall. Some of you are frustrated because you're swinging your sword in every direction, hoping something changes. You're trying to be louder, faster, stronger. But maybe what you need is to be wiser. Maybe you need to stop and ask, what's the best way to approach this? Not just, what's the hardest I can hit it, but where should I be aiming? Because a well-placed whisper can do more than 1,000 shouts in the wrong direction. Wisdom is not weakness. Pausing is not quitting. Planning is not procrastination. It's preparation. And strategy doesn't replace faith. It works with it. Faith doesn't mean you charge in blind. Faith means you trust that God will show you how to fight, not just that you can. And once you get that, once you understand that divine instruction matters as much as divine inspiration, your battles start to look different. Your energy becomes more focused. Your emotions become more anchored. Your fight becomes more effective. You weren't meant to live in burnout. You were meant to live in balance, strength and strategy, passion and planning, faith and focus. So don't be afraid to pause and rethink how you're fighting. Don't be afraid to step back and regroup. Sometimes stepping back is the most spiritual move you can make. Because when you stop swinging in every direction, you start hearing in the right one. You don't need to get louder to win. You need to get clearer. And once you do, you'll stop fighting harder and start winning smarter. Because in the end, the victory doesn't go to the one who fights the longest. It goes to the one who fights with purpose, wisdom, and strategy. One of the most overlooked reasons you're fighting a losing battle is because you're trying to fix things on the outside while completely ignoring what's going on inside. You're going to war with your circumstances, but you're not even acknowledging the war within. You're trying to control everything around you. Your job, your finances, your relationships, your future. But you haven't made peace with your own heart, your thoughts, your past, your fears. And as long as the internal conflict goes unresolved, the external battles will never truly be won. The loudest war is the one nobody sees. It's not the argument you had with someone yesterday. It's the conversation you've been having with yourself for the last 5 years. It's not the opposition around you that's defeating you. It's the voice in your head telling you that you're not enough, that you've failed too many times, that you'll never break free from this cycle. And until you confront that voice, no amount of external victory will bring real peace. You can change jobs, you can move cities, you can cut off people, you can start new routines. But if you don't deal with what's going on inside, you'll just take your conflict with you. You can't outrun your inner war. You can only face it, because unresolved wounds become filters, and filters become frameworks. And before you know it, you're interpreting every opportunity, every relationship, every setback through a lens that was shaped by pain you never healed from. This is why some people keep sabotaging themselves even when good things come. It's not because they don't want success. It's because deep down, something in them still believes they don't deserve it. That's an internal war. It's why some people can't hold on to peace even when life is calm, because internally they've never known how to live without chaos. That's a battle within. And if you don't face it, it'll keep resurfacing no matter how many times you change your environment. What we call procrastination is not laziness. It's emotional avoidance. We're not tired from the task. We're tired from the thoughts that come with the task, thoughts of inadequacy, fear of failure, anxiety over judgment. So we distract ourselves. We stay busy. We numb out. But all that's doing is delaying a battle that still needs to be won. Because if you don't face the war within, it'll manifest in ways you can't predict, in sudden outbursts, in anxiety attacks, in constant insecurity, in people-pleasing, in perfectionism, or complete apathy. But here's the good news. Just because the battle is within doesn't mean you're fighting alone. God does his best work in the unseen places. He heals the parts you've hidden from everyone, even yourself. But you've got to bring it into the light. You've got to be honest enough to say, I'm struggling, not out there, in here. I'm losing peace, not because of what they said, but because of what I keep saying to myself. Healing doesn't come through hiding. Victory doesn't come through pretending. You have to get real with yourself. You have to ask, what am I really fighting? Is it rejection from the past? Is it shame from something you've buried? Is it fear of being abandoned again? Is it the belief that you're not worthy of love or success or joy? Until you name it, you can't defeat it. You can't fix what you refuse to face. When you finally confront the war within, something powerful happens. You stop projecting your pain onto people who don't deserve it. You stop running from silence. You stop needing validation from the outside because you found peace on the inside. And from that place of inner strength, you begin to fight your external battles with clarity and confidence. You don't need a new life to win. You need a new lens, a healed heart, a mind that's been renewed. And that kind of transformation doesn't come through more effort. It comes through surrender. It comes through saying, God, I'm tired of fixing everything out there. Help me deal with what's going on in here. That's when the real victory begins, because when the internal battle is won, no external fight can shake you. And when you finally make peace with yourself, the world can no longer rob you of the peace it didn't give you. One of the most subtle reasons people keep fighting losing battles is because they refuse to adapt. They stay stuck in old strategies, old patterns, old mindsets, hoping that what worked in one season will work in the next. But the truth is, what worked before won't always work again. Seasons change, people change, circumstances change. And if you don't learn how to change with them, you'll keep swinging in a fight that already moved on without you. No doubt, it threatens your rhythm. It challenges your identity. It exposes your need to grow. And that's why most people resist it, not because they can't change, but because they don't want to let go of what feels familiar. But comfort is not always your friend. Sometimes it's the enemy in disguise. It keeps you attached to broken systems, outdated routines, and expired callings. And then you wonder why things aren't working anymore. You're not losing because you're lazy. You're losing because you've outgrown the way you're fighting. Adaptation is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the ability to recognize this isn't the same battle, so I can't fight it the same way. It's the humility to say, maybe the way I handled it before isn't going to get me through this now. But pride hates change. Pride wants you to stay loyal to a method, even when it's no longer producing fruit. Pride says, this is how I've always done it. But purpose says, is it still working? Is it still aligned? Is this still where I'm supposed to be? The reason many people lose momentum in life is because they keep trying to carry yesterday's tools into today's terrain. You can't use a slingshot in a sword fight. You can't keep walking around walls that God has already brought down. You can't keep praying for new results while living in old rhythms. Faith isn't just believing in the outcome. It's having the courage to adjust your approach when God shifts the assignment. Sometimes God will change your situation not to confuse you, but to develop you, because growth requires movement, and movement requires flexibility. And flexibility requires faith, the kind of faith that says, God, I don't know exactly how this is going to look, but I trust you enough to shift with you. Because the goal is not to stay consistent with your past. The goal is to stay obedient to your purpose. And that means adapting when necessary. Think about the way technology evolves. Imagine trying to solve a modern problem with a device from 20 years ago. It's not that the device was bad, it's just outdated. Some of the systems you're still using in your mind and your habits, they're outdated. They were built for a version of you that doesn't even exist anymore. And God is saying, I'm not asking you to abandon your foundation. I'm asking you to upgrade your framework. Refusing to adapt will make you lose battles that were already set up for your victory. Because the opportunity was there, but your mindset wasn't. The door opened, but your fear of change made you miss it. You prayed for more. But when more came wrapped in discomfort, you stayed where it was safe. That's how people forfeit favor. Not by being unwilling to work, but by being unwilling to shift. You don't have to change who you are. You just have to change how you move. The core of your identity stays rooted. But your methods, your strategies, your systems, those must be flexible. Because God doesn't always repeat the same process. He healed one blind man by touching his eyes, another by making mud, another by just speaking. The process changed, but the power didn't. And if Jesus could adapt, why do we think we're called to be rigid? What do I need to adjust? Is it your time management, your perspective on success, the way you handle conflict, the way you respond to failure? Because the battle you're in might not even be hard. You just might be using old tools to fight it. And that's not a strength issue. That's a strategy issue. That's a shift issue. You were created to evolve, to grow, to adapt. And when you stop resisting the change, when you stop fearing the shift, that's when things start to flow again. That's when peace returns. That's when clarity breaks through. Not because everything around you got easier, but because you became wiser in how you approached it. When you finally adapt, you stop losing to things you were always meant to overcome.